Hello everyone, FPL Raptor here and welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel. In today's video, we will be previewing Game Week 10. As always, I've asked for your dilemmas, discussion points and advice that you may need on Twitter and on YouTube community. You've given me all your topics and as always, I break them down with some graphics and my personal opinion on them. If you are enjoying the content here on this channel, please do remember to like, comment and subscribe. But without further ado, let's get into today's video. I want to say a massive thank you to the legends over at OneFootball for sponsoring the content on this channel for the foreseeable future. If you do not know who OneFootball are, where have you been? But if you are new to them, they are a fantastic free mobile application or desktop application where you basically get everything you need in football that you could possibly want and more. Transfer news, injury news, press conference updates, different competitions as well, whether it be international duties, UCL, or at the moment the EFL Cup as well. The thing that I love about it is the live notifications, which are very, very quick. They come straight to your phone and they let you know who scored and who got the assist. So when you're trying to keep up to date with the games that aren't on TV over the weekend with FPL, you can get those straight to your phone and you can know straight away whether your players, fingers crossed, got the goal or the assist. So if you'd like to download the best free football app on the market, or you just want to support the channel and want to do that for free, you can click the link in the description, download OneFootball and let me know what you think of it if you do. As you might expect, this was possibly the most commonly asked question, and it's been something that's really been cropping up lately, is Mason Mount versus Phil Foden. And a lot of us don't own either, and we want to prioritize the transfers. And yes, you could bring both in, but a lot of people don't want to take the hit or they don't have 2 free transfers. And you can bring them in across various weeks, but it is nice to know who to prioritize out of the two and who to use your free transfer on. So there are lots of nuances to this, and I don't think there's a clear-cut one or the other. I do have an opinion on who I think is the better asset to be bringing in, and I'll try to not be biased when I'm reviewing them. I don't own either, and I won't own either come this weekend, so it's not because I own one of the players. I do just think there is a clear favourite. If we firstly take a look at the price, it is worth noting that at the time of recording this, which is on Wednesday evening quite late, Mason Mount is cheaper than Phil Foden. He is 0.6 million cheaper than Phil Foden. So straight away, you do need to take that into account. If budget is no concern, however, let's look at them as though they were equally priced. With the fixtures coming up, it's a very, very interesting one. And we've discussed Chelsea's fixtures and Manchester City's fixtures in quite a lot of detail on this channel over the past 3 or 4 game weeks. What I would say is I maintain that Chelsea's fixtures are ever so slightly better over the next 5 or 6 game weeks, up till about game week 15. You can see Newcastle and Burnley in the next 2 are definitely better than Palace and Manchester United. However bad you think Manchester United is, I'd much rather be facing Burnley personally. After that, Chelsea have Leicester, United, Watford and West Ham, which is a bit of a mixed bag. Leicester and Man United have been quite leaky at the back, as have West Ham, to be fair. But these are teams that you do expect to defend better moving forward. But Leicester United, Watford and West Ham are all teams that have been conceding quite a few goals recently. So I don't think they're necessarily tough fixtures for Chelsea. And then for Man City, it's Everton, West Ham, Villa and Watford. So they both play Watford, they both play West Ham, they both play Manchester United. So I would say largely the fixtures are pretty similar over the next 6, but I would just about favour Chelsea's fixtures due to those Newcastle and Burnley games. I just think that they're really nice games coming up. And as we'll speak about a bit later, whilst Crystal Palace is quite a nice fixture for Man City, Palace have tightened up the defence recently and they're not necessarily a team to target. So short term, I favour Mason Mount and Chelsea's fixtures slightly, but it's very close. What I would say is long term, from game week 16 onwards, I much prefer Manchester City's fixtures. I'd actually say from around game week 20, there is a clear favourite in that Man City's fixtures are much better. From game week 16 to game week 20, it's very, very close again. Chelsea's fixtures do continue to be all right. But from around game week 20 onwards, City's are really good. So I'm not necessarily saying you want to keep Foden or Mount for like 15 game weeks, but if you're looking quite long term and you're fed up of changing around this mid-price spot, then maybe you just go for Phil Foden because of how good City's fixtures are over the next 15, 20 game weeks. The other thing to consider, which isn't mentioned here, but will be mentioned in the captaincy selection later on in the video, is that Man City's attack is better than Chelsea's attack. It's very, very close, but you would say, based on the underlying data, that City have the slightly better attack. So that also needs to be taken into account as well. What we'll be doing here, though, mainly is comparing the individual underlying statistics of the two. So neither of them have played that many minutes. Neither of them have played above 500 minutes. Mason Mount has played slightly more than Phil Foden, but we are looking at quite a small sample size, so do take it with a pinch of salt. As always with these underlying statistics, the player with the better statistic of the two has their box highlighted in orange, and the player with the worse of the two has it highlighted in white. So as you can see by glancing at it, every underlying statistic that I like to look at in these videos, Phil Foden does come out on top. Projected points-wise, the Fantasy Football Fix algorithm favours Phil Foden, probably due to the underlying stats. Also, the Crystal Palace fixture and Watford fixture are decent, but that's largely due to the stats because, as I said, the fixtures are very, very similar for the two of them with respect to difficulty. Expected FPL points is very tight. 6.73 for Mount versus 6.84 for Foden. I think the reason it is so tight is because Chelsea have kept quite a few clean sheets. They've had quite high expected clean sheets as well, and Mason Mount has played in those fixtures, so he gets the extra point for the clean sheet as well. Foden is very, very close, but he is slightly better in that, but I would say they're virtually equal there. Non-penalty expected goals and expected assists is worth noting. Fantastic for both of them. They've both got really, really nice expected goal involvement per 90. 0.71 for Mason Mount is better than like the likes of Jimenez, Vardy, not quite as good as Antonio, but better than the likes of Bruno. It's sort of like premium level for both Mason Mount and Phil Foden. Whilst I would say that the previous game against Brighton and Norwich did skew this slightly for Mount and Foden, it doesn't matter because they performed that specific way in that game, so it's worth taking into account. And both of their expected goal involvements are elite level. What I would say, as well as Foden's being 0.81 and therefore better than Mason Mount's, most of Foden's is made up by expected goals. He's more of a goal threat, whereas most of Mason Mount's is made up by expected assists. He's more of a creative threat. And as we know, more points and more bonus points for a goal for a midfielder. So for me, if I'm choosing between the two, not only due to having better expected goal involvement, but also having much higher expected goals, I would favour Phil Foden based on that. That being said, it is nice that Mount has so many routes to goal and he is very creative. He does take set pieces, but Foden has actually been taking a few corners as well recently. So I'm not necessarily sure you can hold that above Phil Foden in favour of Mason Mount. Big chances, there is a clear difference. Mason Mount doesn't get many big chances, and it's the reason that he doesn't really score that many goals outside of set pieces, free kicks, etc., penalties potentially. He doesn't score many open play goals, Mason Mount. I think it was his first since like May, I think the statistic was for Mason Mount. Obviously, he got a hat-trick against Norwich, but he doesn't tend to get many big chances and therefore he gets less goals and has a lower XG than Phil Foden. Phil Foden's averaging a big chance every game pretty much at 0.96 per 90. That's what you want from a player that you're bringing in. If he's going to get one big chance per 90, and we know he's got very, very good finishing, Phil Foden, there's some elite level stats. If you can score that big chance, then maybe take a smaller chance. You're looking at 2 attacking returns plus assists. So you can see straight away Foden's stats are very, very good. And it is a small sample size, but he has performed pretty well, his underlying stats-wise, past seasons as well, even when he was getting limited minutes. And finally, touches in the box is probably the biggest difference. It's a very stark contrast between the two. Mason Mount only 4.83 touches in the box per 90, which isn't that bad. I think that, again, is the similar sort of thing that you would expect from, like, I think it's the same sort of stats as Tony, Jimenez. So it's pretty good for a right wing or a right forward that potentially drops deep and tracks back. But Phil Foden at 7.92. is elite level. It is because he's played in the false 9, but as we've seen recently, he's played on the left wing as well, and it doesn't really matter where he plays because he's so direct, he gets into the box a lot as well. So that's why he's getting so many more touches in the box, he's getting more big chances, and that's why his goal threat is higher. If we take a look at the heat maps, or the touch maps, I should say, they are fairly similar. It's just Foden's normally drifting out to the left and Mason Mount drifts out to the right. You can see that there are red spots in both corner flags, which means both are taking set pieces. I would say that Phil Foden's unlikely to keep set pieces when De Bruyne plays and when they've got their full team back. We know Gundogan can take set pieces as well. Zinchenko's taken a couple in the past. Bernardo Silva can. So I'm not necessarily sure I would rely on Phil Foden to take set pieces, whereas Mason Mount, I think, is much more likely to at least take the in-swinging corners. If you take all of this together, it is close. Both have good fixtures, both have good underlying statistics, and I would say both are about as nailed as each other moving forward. However, I do think that Phil Foden does edge it, definitely, with the underlying statistics. Bigger goal threat, more big chances, more touches in the box. And as I said, long term, I prefer his fixtures. And I do think that Pep last season, the season before, was really slowly edging Foden into the team. I think this might be Foden's big breakout season. I know we said that last year. It just feels different this year. It feels like Pep has finally decided that he's going to start an established 11 most weeks. We've seen a very limited rotation from Pep in the Premier League. The likes of Cancelo, Diaz, Foden, Grealish. These players are starting almost every game. Jesus on the right wing as well has largely started most games. And I think Phil Foden, or I know Phil Foden, is in Pep's favoured 11. And the fact that he was rested in the EFL Cup tonight on Wednesday evening just demonstrates, I think, that Pep does favour him in the more important games. So I think I know that I am leaning towards Phil Foden. But if you told me that you're going to bring in Mason Mount, I don't think that's a terrible choice at all. What I would say is just realise that they are very inflated, these underlying stats, from that 7-0 victory and his hat-trick, of course. But it was an incredible performance. So I would just about lean to Foden. I like both of them. If you have a free transfer in midfield this week, potentially Rafinha is injured, or you just want to take out Greenwood or Jota potentially, I would definitely look at Mount or Foden, and I would just about prefer Foden myself. Quite like this question, and it's not something I'm going to discuss too much because it's very dependent on your team. And I also think once the press conferences start flying in and the flags start reducing because managers clear players fit, perhaps Rafinha and Mbeumo and Vardy are all suddenly fit. But one of the questions was, is it time to free hit? Is it a viable technique? Because, for example, people have like Mbeumo, Vardy, Rafinha. Can't think of many more off the top of my head. There are many flags this week, but these are all players, Vardy, Mbeumo, and Rafinha. You probably want them long term. However, due to the amount of flags that some people have, they're forced almost to take players out that they want because they can't field a full 11 otherwise. So the question is, if the injuries look like they're fairly short term, and it looks like next week Vardy, Rafinha, and Mbeumo will all be fit, is it a viable technique to just free hit this week so we get to keep the players that are injured, and then next week we can have our team back? For me, I just think there are better times to use the free hit. I just think free hit comes in so handy when there's blank game weeks, when there's only like 4 or 5 fixtures and you've got a team of 3 or 4 players. That is, if you're looking at expected value, that is a much more effective way to use your free hit. You are much likely to get a higher amount of points in comparison to your baseline team in a blank game week than you are in a single game week. Potentially, I've even seen it used very, very effectively in a double game week because you can free hit 11 double game week players and you can get 22 of the best players for that specific week. So I just think, try not to think too short term. Think about long-term delayed gratification, which we've spoken about on this channel already in the psychology videos. Try and think about the possible value of holding your free hit for a blank or double game week. I think if you've got 7 or 8 injuries, I'd probably use my wild card. And if you've got 7 or 8 injuries and you've already used your wild card, then maybe the free hit is the one. But what you've got to think is you need to make sure that those injuries or those flags in your team are definitely short term. What you don't want to do is this week, for example, play your free hit. And I know I keep using the same 3 players, but imagine Vardy, Rafinha, and Mbeumo are definitely all announced as being injured. And then you play your free hit, and then next week they're still injured. Next week you will get back to your team with those 3 players still in it, and then you've got the same issue, but you just don't have your free hit and you've still only got 1 free transfer. Remember, free transfers don't carry over when you play the free hit. So if you play your free hit, the next week you'll only have 1 free transfer. So there are a lot of ifs, buts, and maybes. For me, I think there is just more value in holding it for a double or single game week if possible. But I understand if you've got 6, 7 flags and you've used a wild card, maybe you play it. What I've done is I've just quickly chucked on screen a free hit. I spent like 15 minutes thinking about this, but I haven't thought about this in tons of detail. There are other players I'm sure that you could pick, but it's sort of, you can see straight away the sort of players that I would want to target. I'd definitely be bringing in Chilwell and Mount, potentially Reece James, but I just think because he played 90 minutes in the Carabao Cup, I don't think he's probably likely, well, he's not definitely going to start at the weekend, and I'd want in my free hit to make sure my players are definitely starting. I did play around with having Trent and Robertson or Trent and Van Dijk. Just, I think Brighton are really poor from an attacking perspective, and I think there's a good chance for a clean sheet for Liverpool, and not many people will be on a Liverpool double up. And when you're on a free hit, I like to find ways to get things that other people can't. You can see I've got Melier in goal against Norwich. I think that's another one. Should have a good chance of a clean sheet despite how bad Leeds have been. Mount, Salah, De Bruyne and Mbeumo fairly clear. Obviously, if Mbeumo's injured, you can bring in Livramento from the bench, or you could go for like a Smith Rowe, or you could try and find the funds to go up to like a Cornet, whatever his name is, the Burnley guy. There are other options in there, but I like the idea of having De Bruyne in there. Again, I think that's a player that not many will own. And whilst he has started the Carabao Cup game, I still expect him to probably play the weekend. I still think, again, once again, he's in Pep's favoured starting 11. And then the front 3, apart from Tony, is a very differential front 3, but all have very high upside this week. Someone like Gabby Jesus. You could go for Phil Foden and De Bruyne and go for someone else in attack. I like the idea of having a double City attack against Palace. Even though they have tightened up a little bit in defence, I still think that's a fixture that you can, at least for a free hit, target. Tony's a fairly obvious one. And then I like Rodrigo. If Click isn't on the pitch, then Rodrigo should be on penalties. Norwich are pretty terrible defense, even though Leeds have been really, really poor and Rafinha might not be fit. I do like the idea of going for Rodrigo. So as you can see, with a free hit, as well as dealing with potential short-term injury issues, you can attack it with some exciting differentials. It is quite a fun chip to play. I just think that you're much more likely to do further damage and increase your rank and get one up on opposition and your mini league rivals when you play it in a week where your team is in a much worse place, where they've only got 3 or 4 playing, for example. So for me, I'll be saving it for probably a blank game week, possibly a double. If you are going to play it, I would do something along these lines, but definitely wait until the press conferences before activating, because I reckon a few of those flags will clear up before the weekend. So the next thing to discuss is what to do with Cristiano Ronaldo. And you'll actually find quite a common theme with these game week preview videos and the questions that you guys do ask me is it's often, what do I do with this player? Because as FPL managers, one of the main things that we need to do is decide, do we keep, sell, replace, what logical alternatives for the players in our team? We've held Ronaldo for this set of fixtures. Should we be selling him? We've got Havertz in. Should we be selling him? So I'll cover a few other players, what to do with in the final section, the final Q&A. But quite a few people were asking me about Ronaldo. I think quite a few managers that use the wildcard early or are saving the wildcard had Ronaldo, and they held Ronaldo waiting for game week 9 when they were going to make the switch from Ronaldo to Lukaku. Of course, Lukaku picked up the injury then, and they maybe decided to hold Ronaldo for one more week, and then they were going to sell him this week for one of probably either Kane, Vardy, etc. Now Vardy's potentially injured for the weekend, although I do think he'll be fit, ready for the weekend. Kane's obviously just looking completely devoid of talent, interest, energy, everything. He just doesn't look quite at it, Harry Kane. And Antonio's fixtures are becoming more tough now. Jimenez is not looking, he's looking a shadow of the man he once was. So there really aren't that many options. So a lot of people are like, well, do I sell Ronaldo? And if so, for who? It's definitely a difficult one. My initial reaction to this question when I first see it is, yes, I would sell Ronaldo. That's my initial gut feeling response. It might be slight pessimism as a Manchester United fan, but there is some serious issues at our club. And I don't envision over the next 5 game weeks, Tottenham, City, Watford's a great fixture, but Chelsea and Arsenal, if you take them as a collective rather than just focusing on that game week 12, I don't see many attacking returns, apologies, for Ronaldo over those games. That being said, I don't expect Manchester United to just stop scoring. And if we do score, Ronaldo will probably be at the heart of it due to the way we play with Ronaldo in the team. So it's a tricky one. What I would say is we'll get through to whether you should sell Ronaldo. If you do sell Ronaldo, my personal opinion on it is that it should probably be for Harry Kane, Vardy if he is fit, or like a Son, De Bruyne, Mane in midfield. The reason I say that is because I think it's very, very important for flexibility reasons and long-term planning to have 2 premiums in your team. So I assume that for those of you that own Ronaldo, it might be that you've got Ronaldo, Salah, and then the funds are spread out. My issue with if you sell Ronaldo for like a Tony or an Antonio, and then you use the funds to upgrade like Duffy to Trent and then Manquillo to Chilwell, and you start using the funds that you had in Ronaldo to spread out amongst the rest of your squad, yes, that might make your squad really good for the next, I don't know, 5-6 game weeks. You might look really, really strong. My issue is come game week 15 when you're going to want Ronaldo back for Crystal Palace, Norwich, Brentford, Burnley, the fixtures that come after that, or potentially you want Lukaku or Kane or De Bruyne, Mane, Bruno all start doing well, and you've only got 1 premium in your team and you've spread the funds around, I think you're going to regret that. And then you've got to make at least 3 or 4 transfers to get the funds back into that striking spot or that midfield spot. And on top of that, you'll have to sell players like Trent, like Chilwell that you've just brought in, and you're not going to want to do that. And then you're left in a very inflexible position. So in my opinion, if you're selling Ronaldo, I would sell him for another premium. I don't mind. I've seen quite a few people do Ronaldo to Tony, which is great, and then use the money to get Mane or De Bruyne in. I don't mind that at all. Or get Foden in and keep money in the bank. Don't mind that. But what I don't think is wise is to start spreading the funds around and getting a really strong squad, but only having 1 premium. I think 2 premiums is definitely the most flexible structure you can have. Fixtures-wise, as I said, the next 5 game weeks are the ones that are tricky. Tottenham's not a particularly difficult fixture at the moment, but we just don't look great, as I said, as an attacking unit. City's a terrible fixture. Chelsea's a terrible fixture. Watford's great, and then Arsenal's hit and miss again. So if Tottenham and Arsenal don't turn up, the next 5 game weeks are pretty decent, but we know Tottenham and Arsenal can defend on their day. It's difficult to predict how it will go for the next 5, but as I said, we aren't going to just stop scoring. We might score less, but Ronaldo will normally be involved if we do score. So I don't think it's an issue to hold Ronaldo. I think if you've got other issues in your team and you're not sure who you want to go for instead, perhaps you've already got Tony, you've already got Antonio, and you've got Ronaldo as your third striker. I don't mind keeping him. And then from game week 15 onwards, many managers are going to either be looking to bring in Bruno Fernandes or Ronaldo. So if you can hold him through the next 5, you save yourself a transfer later down the line. So that's my personal opinion on it. If we take a look at the stats, it is very interesting that Ronaldo's continuing to perform very well from an underlying statistics point of view. It is worth noting that this is largely skewed by those first couple of games. Remember, the Newcastle debut is the one where his expected goal involvement was about 1.6, 1.7. So it is starting to lower game by game, but he's still maintaining very, very impressive underlying stats. Projected to score 45.1 points over the next 8 game weeks by the Fantasy Football Fix algorithm. So they're still expecting him to perform pretty well. His expected FPL points per 90 for the first 9 game weeks, so obviously didn't play all 9, but for the season so far, fairly average, not great. Non-penalty expected goals plus expected assist, as we saw with the Foden and Mount section, better than Mount, but not quite as good as Foden, 0.02 less than Foden. So yes, there's very good non-penalty expected goal involvement. It's not 12.5 million good, though. It's definitely worth noting. Big chances is very impressive. We know due to his positioning, due to the way he conserves energy now with his age, he will get into fantastic positions, and that's the way he scores goals. So big chances, we're very happy with how high that is. Touches in the box, again, very high. Not as high as Foden again, but anything above 6, 7, I think is very impressive. So 7.27, I'm very happy with if he's my striker. And his touch map is good, but not great once again. Lots of touches in the box, as we said. Not many central. I think due to his background as being a winger, he tends to drift out left, tends to drift out right, but he definitely favours that left wing. And I think we see a little bit of rotation there, especially with Rashford now back in the team. I think we'll see a lot more rotation there. Rashford drifts, where Ronaldo drifts out a little bit, especially if we start Cavani up top in a few games and Ronaldo out on the wing. I think the heat map this season will start to develop that way, where a lot of Ronaldo's touches, whilst they're in the box, they are drifting out to the left a little bit. I can't answer the question definitively. It largely depends on your squad. It largely depends on what other issues you have and who you want to bring in if you take him out. I don't mind selling him. I don't mind keeping him. What I would say is if you don't sell him this week or next week, you're probably going to hold him. If you want to sell him, I'd just get rid now and probably bring in someone like Tony for the nice run of fixtures. I get asked quite often to list some of my favourite differentials, but as you guys will know, the guys that watch all of my videos, I don't really look at ownership too much, and I'm a very strong believer that we shouldn't make decisions based on ownership. We shouldn't look to bring in differentials. We shouldn't look to captain players just because they have low ownership. Although I have done it in the past, it's because I believe that player will score the most points that week or over a series of game weeks. And so whilst I am going to suggest some, I've called them under the radar punts or potential differentials, I'm not suggesting these just because they're low ownership. And for me, in my personal decision making, you should pick players that you think are going to score the most points in a single week or over the coming game weeks. However, I do understand that it's very fun to own players that not many others own, and there's no better feeling, there really isn't, than having a player that no one else has spoken about or owned do very well. So for the purpose of some entertainment, and for those of you guys that do like to look for differentials, I've suggested some picks here. Some are very differential that I haven't really heard anyone speak about, and some are fairly differential, and then some are starting to gain some real momentum in the Twitter community, for example. So I've listed them through, I've got 3 midfielders and 5 strikers. I haven't gone for any defenders because it's largely dependent on the team they're playing for as opposed to the attacking threat. Most of the best defenders as well at the moment are like Chilwell, Cancelo, Reece James, and I think most of us have a fairly settled back 4, back 5. So I've gone for some attackers, and I've tried to go for fairly cheap punts, because I think if you're going for an under the radar differential, you don't want to go for like a Vardy or a Kane. Whilst Kane might be a differential at the moment, it's a bit expensive to take a punt on. So I'll work through them fairly quickly because I don't want to spend too long on this, but Kovacic deserves our attention. I completely disregarded him maybe 2 or 3 times in 2 or 3 separate videos. I kept saying, no, don't bring him in. He's not worth bringing in, guys. Don't bring in Kovacic. He's not an attacking threat. He plays too deep, yada, yada, yada. I kept banging on about it. He keeps proving me wrong. What I would say is that the underlying statistics sort of support the point of view that I've had regarding Kovacic. Expected FPL points 4.95 is pretty average, sort of what you'd expect from number 8. The expected clean sheet point obviously helps him there. Non-penalty expected goals and expected assists of 0.44. really isn't that bad. But when you consider that almost all of that is expected assists, his open play goal threat is virtually non-existent. He very rarely gets into any good positions. And his touches in the box is terrible. 0.89 is lower than most defenders in the league. So with Kovacic, you are completely reliant really on the assists and him sliding through good players. And his passing is fantastic. Don't get me wrong. He will keep getting assists over the coming game weeks. But I'm not sure I would want to rely on that for a source of points. The fixtures aren't bad coming up, but what I think Kovacic does is you're very hopeful on lots of assists because one assist isn't going to be enough to really warrant having him in your team. And you're also blocking a third Chelsea spot just in case you want to go for like James Chilwell and Lukaku in the near future, or Mount, Chilwell and James. If you want to do that, Kovacic blocks that third spot. So for me, as you can see by the Raptor ranking, out of these 8 options, I've got him as 8th just because the underlying statistics don't support that. I don't think he'll sustain that level. And I don't think that I'd want to block that third Chelsea spot just in case moving forward. The next one is Redmond, who is at the moment starting as a duo up top for Southampton alongside Broja, who is also on this list here. He's been really, really good this season. He is definitely going under the radar. 0.3% ownership, 5.9 million. He had a price fall. 5.3 expected FPL points per 90. Apologies. Is really good. That's very, very good, considering he's very unlikely to get that clean sheet point because Southampton don't keep that many clean sheets. 0.56 non-pen expected goals and expected assists combined per 90 is one of the best on the list. It's actually second best on the list of 8. Touches in the box is relatively poor considering he's playing up top, but he has played left mid, right mid in the past this season. He is naturally a winger, but he's been played out of position to a very, very good standard by Ralph Hasenhüttl. So I think that Redmond will probably continue to be favoured for the short term as the second striker in a 4-4-2. But even when he is potentially eventually dropped for Che Adams or Armstrong or whatever happens, he can then drop into left mid / right mid. So I think that Redmond should be fairly nailed. Saints fans can correct me down below. If he is, Watford, Villa and Norwich over the next 3, I like Redmond as a short-term punt. I don't think anyone's looking at him. Those that are looking at a Southampton striker already have Armstrong or would potentially be looking at Broja. And Redmond's a midfielder, it's worth noting. So you've got an OOP player there. I do really like him. I've got him as 4th on my Raptor ranking because I think the underlying statistics are great. I'm just not 100% sure he keeps his place up top. And if he does drop back, it will reduce his goal threat slightly. The next one is, I think it's Cornet. I'm pretty sure because he's from the Ivory Coast, I believe. Spoken French, so that should be Cornet. I haven't actually watched him play. I've only watched the highlights and like match of the day. So I haven't watched a full match with him. But from speaking to a few Burnley fans on Twitter, I have a few close friends that are Burnley fans on Twitter. They seem to be very keen on him. Claret FPL is a good one. He seems to be very bullish on the Ivorian. So I think not a trap. I think you need to realise that Burnley aren't an attacking team. And whilst he's had some good attacking returns so far, due to the sheer amount of struggle that Burnley have in front of goal, he probably won't continue to score that many. That being said, 6.04 expected FPL points per 90 is joint second on this list. 0.53 expected goals and expected assists per 90, extremely good. And 4.25 touches in the box makes him, so far, the most involved in and around the box, which is exactly what you want from a player. And the fixtures coming up aren't bad. Brentford and Chelsea, I don't think particularly easy. We know that Palace have been fairly solid in defence recently. Tottenham and Wolves. So I wouldn't say the next 5 in particular are great fixtures to target, but as a possible rotation, perhaps, playing like a 3-4-3 / 3-5-2, and you're like rotating like Broja and a midfielder or like Livramento, and you're rotating those cheaper players. I don't mind him as a punt. I think you could definitely do worse. I've currently got him as 5th just because his underlying stats are slightly worse than Redmond, but he's becoming quite talismanic already for Burnley, and I think he could be a great option moving forward. Broja, I've spoken about quite a lot already. Fantastic option. As you can see, probably, apart from Jesus, who's the most expensive, he's probably got the best underlying statistics on this list. And as we spoke about in the Redmond section, Watford, Villa and Norwich are 3 fantastic fixtures. He does have a minor injury, so keep an eye on Ralph Hasenhüttl's press conference. Don't obviously bring him in if he is injured. But if he's deemed fit, I think he's nailed down a starting spot, at least until he starts performing poorly. I think he's arguably one of the best on this list. And if you go through price and underlying statistics and fixtures, he's definitely the best option on this list. But I've got him as 2nd on my Raptor rank. Pukki's one that is literally a fixture-based punt. His underlying statistics are horrific. Like, genuinely horrific. 3.54 expected FPL points per 90, by far the lowest on the list. 0.24 expected goal involvement per 90 is terrible. It is non-penalty, of course. When you put penalties in, it does bump it up slightly. 4.17 touch in the box isn't terrible, but considering he is their number 9, you would hope for slightly more. If you consider a lot of midfielders have sort of 5, 6, Phil Foden, for example, almost 8 touch in the box per 90. 4.17 really isn't that fantastic, but look at that sea of green fixtures. Leeds, Brentford, Southampton, Wolves and Newcastle. The Leeds, Southampton and Newcastle fixtures in particular I really like. Brentford and Wolves are pretty hit and miss with their defensive duties. They can be really good. Brentford in particular have been pretty solid. But as a 5, I really like the fixtures. You can see on the Raptor rank, I've got him 7th, just due to how terrible the underlying statistics are and how bad Norwich have been from an attacking perspective. But if you are a fixture person and you really target the fixtures, I would say Norwich have probably the first, maybe second best fixtures over the coming 5 game weeks. So I would look to target them if you look to target your fixtures. Apologies for the random cut there, guys. My camera died halfway through me recording this, but we'll just continue anyway. Iheanacho is the next one on the list. Underlying statistics-wise, they're actually quite poor in comparison to how good Iheanacho was last year. But if you just look for a £7 million striker, the underlying stats are really, really strong. 5.61 touch expected FPL points per 90 is 4th on this list. That is pretty impressive for a non-premium striker. 0.49 non-penalty expected goals plus expected assist, which is potentially an expected FPL return every 2 games, which is very solid once again for a mid-price striker. 4.4 touch in the box, as we discussed with Pookie, isn't that great. It's not necessarily something to worry about, but I would like to see him more involved in and around the box, which he managed to do last year. It was Vardy that was actually dropping a bit deeper, and Iheanacho was getting a lot of touches in the box, like 8 or 9 per 90, whereas now he's getting far less. I don't know if that's a change in system, a change in the role for Iheanacho. I'm not sure quite what it is, but that is something to monitor, definitely. The fixtures over the next 3 aren't great. They're not bad. Chelsea should be red. I don't know why I've made it grey there. So the Chelsea fixture is red by the FDR colours. But Arsenal and Leeds are decent enough fixtures, especially if Vardy is fit. We know they link up well. We know Vardy likes to play against Arsenal. Leeds is a fantastic fixture. But if Daka and Iheanacho are playing, or Daka and Vardy, Daka and whoever it is, hopefully Iheanacho gets some minutes in that, because that is a really, really nice fixture there. And then Watford, Southampton. And then the fixtures continue to be pretty nice after that for Leicester. So I actually think Iheanacho is definitely a good option. The reason I've got him as 6th on my Raptor rank is just because of the limited minutes he plays. I expect him to start 95% of the minutes in the 3-5-2. I think as long as Leicester hold that formation, Iheanacho is a relatively nailed starter. What I don't like is with Daka waiting in the wings, or if Vardy doesn't start with Vardy on the bench, whoever it is on the bench out of the 3 are so likely to come on around the 60th, 70th minute, whether they're winning or not. So we see a lot with Iheanacho. He'll start the match, but he'll come off around the 60th, 65th, 70th minute. And I would want my striker to be playing as many minutes as possible. So whilst I do think he'll start most matches, I've got him 6th just due to the underlying statistics not being quite what they once were last season, and due to him not playing 90 minutes in every game. The person I've got 3rd on the Raptor ranking, I did discuss in the past video, so I won't go into too much detail. That is Callum Wilson. Listen, he's talismanic, great underlying statistics as always, very, very consistent. He maintains those underlying statistics despite the fixtures, despite the way Newcastle are playing. He always performs well. And the fixtures, whilst they are a bit of a mixed bag, especially with Chelsea at home next week, I do think that he's worth bringing in. And if I were on wildcard this week, I think my front 3 would include Callum Wilson. Nice price point, good underlying stats, decent fixtures. The final one is Gabby Jesus, who, if I just turn my chair slightly, you can see is ranked 1st on my Raptor rank. I think out of all of the punts, he's probably the least of a punt, right? He's 9% owned. He's not particularly under the radar. But I think due to game week 8, returning from international duty, he obviously missed out to Mahrez. And I think people have forgotten just how many games Jesus has started this season. He is definitely the favoured right wing as far as we're concerned. He's rested, you could say, or rotated in the EFL Cup midweek, which would suggest that he is first choice for the Premier League and that Mahrez is probably going to be favoured in the cup competitions. I don't want to infer too much from that. If you follow Scout Luke on Twitter, or I think Disable is his nickname, he said that he thinks that it's very, very fallacious thinking to say that due to someone being rested in the midweek, they're therefore more likely to start the cup game. Mahrez could quite easily start the Premier League game this weekend, but I do think that Jesus is more likely than Mahrez to start on the right wing. Underlying stats-wise, along with Broja, he's probably got the best stats here. His non-penalty expected goals and expected assists per 90 is 0.72. Not quite as good as Foden, as we discussed in the Foden section, but still really, really good underlying stats. And we've discussed the fixtures already for City. Bit of a mixed bag, but generally very, very good moving forward. So hopefully that helps for those of you that want some under-the-radar picks. I've not just selected them because they have low ownership, but I have selected hopefully a few fun picks here. And just as for me, more than anything, is that it can get a little bit dull constantly saying Chilwell, James, Mount, Foden, Salah. I keep mentioning the same players, Antonio, so it's nice to mention some different players and to discuss them. So let me know if any of these, let me know in the comments, out of these 8, who takes your fancy. For me, as you can see by the Raptor rank, I think it'd be Jesus, Broja if he's fit, and Callum Wilson would be my top 3, but I think they're all great punts in their own right. For consistency as much as anything, I am going to cover captaincy no matter what, even if everyone's perma-captain in Salah. And if you're not familiar with the term perma-captain, by the way, it's permanent captain. Everyone says this when a player starts performing really well. They say, I'm going to perma-captain this player. And no matter what the fixture, that's fine. Like, if you're going to captain Salah no matter what, it might still be worth watching this because I'm going to discuss certain things about certain defenses. You can see, hopefully, if you've watched these videos for a while now, you can see I've made some different additions this week, which we're going to get onto. But just for consistency and just to make sure that I'm covering it, I will still cover captaincy. And for those of you that do want to go a bit different, you don't have to captain Salah. That being said, as we're going to talk about, as we always do, the top table is underlying statistics per 90 for the top 5 captaincy choices, in my opinion, for the upcoming game week. And the bottom table is the underlying statistics for the team the player plays for from an attacking perspective. So Liverpool's attacking underlying statistics. And then with the orange column headings, you can see it's the defensive data of the team they're playing. And that's why I've got the badge just next to them to show the fixture that they're playing and the team they're playing against. So we'll start, as always, with the underlying statistics of the player. As always, it's dark, or that bright green, the FDR bright green, if it's the best stat of the 5. It's then that slightly more faded green if it's second, third, and then the most faded green / white for 4th and 5th. So you want the stat to be bright green. It suggests that it is the best of the bunch here. As always, Salah definitely comes out on top here. Interestingly, there are a couple of other options this week, though. I think last week, the underlying statistics, when we compared them, if you remember, it was heavily in favour of Salah. Whereas I think there are definitely a couple of options this week if you don't want to go for Salah. I don't think you necessarily have to. That being said, 1.1 goals per 90, 0.67 assists per 90, 9.11 touches in the box per 90. Non-penalty expected goals plus expected assists per 90 of 1.02. He's expected to get an attacking return every game. That is elite level stats. That is so impressive. 9.04 expected FPL points per 90. He's already hit 100 FPL points this season. The underlying statistics are frightening, but there are a few players here who compare in some of them and are better in a couple. So I think the two really that stand out to me here are actually probably Phil Foden and Gabriel Jesus, the two City boys. You can see that De Bruyne comes out on top for expected assists, but Foden and Jesus, for me, comparing at least a few of the different underlying stats. Assists per 90, you can see Jesus does come out on top. Touches in the box for both Foden and Jesus are both pretty good, especially for Foden. Non-penalty expected goals, again, especially for Foden, but decent for Jesus. They're not bad underlying statistics. It's just because of how good Salah is. They don't look quite as good. And that puts their non-pen expected goals and expected assists at 0.81 and 0.72. But even like Mason Mount at 0.71, as we've discussed, that's really good. And even 0.69 for De Bruyne. Yes, it's majoritarily made up from expected assists. But what I would say is, whilst Salah's stats are exceptional, the 4 options I've included here, who in my opinion are the 4 other options that you could consider, all have really good underlying statistics. I think for me, based on the underlines, Mason Mount and De Bruyne are the 2 for me that I might worry about a little bit, just due to the low expected goals and quite high expected assists. When you're captaining a player, you don't really want to captain a player that's mainly getting their points through assists. You want to captain those goal threats. And as you can see by both Mount and De Bruyne's touches in the box, they're both very, very low. Less than 5 for both of them. Would you rather captain someone that's getting 4 touches in the box per 90 or 9 or 8 in Salah and Foden? For me, I want my captain to be explosive. And in that way, whilst Mount did score a hat-trick last week, it's much more likely that they'll get those double-digit hauls if they're getting into the areas to get those FPL points. So underlying stats-wise, I would say Salah's top and then maybe Foden second, Jesus third. As you can see, I've made some new additions. It required a little bit of extra research, but I think this will be really useful. As always, the first 4 columns are, as I said, the attacking strength, the attacking underlying statistics of the team the player plays for. And then the second 4 are the defensive underlying statistics of the fixture or the team they're playing against. What I've also added in brackets is the Premier League position of that stat. So to use it as an example, the first column, you can see Liverpool's goals per 90 is 3 goals per 90 over the first 9 game weeks. And you can see in brackets it's first. That means that they are the best in the Premier League for goals per 90. So if it was to say 15th, it would mean that they are the 15th best in the Premier League per 90. For the defensive, so you want it to be first. You want your team to be first in all of those. It means they're the best attack in the league. For the second, you want this to be as high as possible because this is the defensive underlying data. So if it said 20th for something, it would mean they are the worst defense in the league. If it said first, it would mean they are the best defense in the league. And of course, we want to target the worst defenses in the league. So hopefully that's clear, the little change I've made to the graphics. Let me know down below if that helps. I think it just allows us to visualize just how good the attacks are or just how bad the defenses are. How good are Liverpool? 3 goals per 90, non-pen expected goals of 2.46 per 90, shots in the box of 14.22 per 90, which shows just most of those are probably Salah. You can see 9.11 touches in the box. And then he's 4.33 big chances per 90 for Liverpool. They not only get lots of small chances, they're getting almost 5 big chances per 90 in a game. And a lot of those are falling to Mohamed Salah. So as you can see by the brackets, they are the best attack in every underlying statistic I looked at. Every single attacking statistic, Liverpool are the best in the league. So if you're targeting the best player, playing for the best team, you are captaining Salah. And you'll get a bit of deja vu here because this is what I said last week. And I advised you to captain Salah. I didn't. But based on the data, they're the best team. You've got the best player. Looks like a bit of a no-brainer. As you can see, interestingly, Chelsea and City, I suppose this is fairly obvious if you watch football and you think about and you have FPL players. City and Chelsea are essentially the second and third best attack in the league. City are predominantly second in every single attacking statistic, apart from goals scored, which Chelsea slightly come out on top on just due to that 7-0 demolishing of Norwich. Everything else, City ranks second, and then Chelsea rank third, fourth, fifth, sixth for a lot of them. But overall, you would say that Chelsea have the third best attack in the league. So again, if you're going based on the team, you're targeting Salah, then one of De Bruyne, Foden, Jesus, and then finally Mason Mount based on the underlying data of the team. Finally, if we take a look at the fixtures and which fixture we should be targeting, as you can see quite clearly, as you would expect, Newcastle is the fixture to target of the 3. They rank 19th for goals conceded per 90, 20th for expected goals conceded per 90, 14th for shots in the box per 90, which isn't as bad, and then 20th for expected clean sheets per 90. So they are the worst defence in the league by some distance. The really surprising thing for me here is that Brighton and Crystal Palace's defences are actually a lot closer than I thought. In my head, Palace are a bad team, they don't defend well, and Brighton are fantastic defensively. That is not supported by the data. The most shocking one for me is expected goals per 90 is 1.32 for Brighton, which puts them 9th in the Premier League. Palace is 1.19, which puts them 7th in the Prem. They're the 7th best defence from an expected goals conceded perspective in the league, and Brighton are 9th. So if you look across them, you would say that Brighton and Palace are fairly similar teams with respect to their defensive data. And if that's the case, the only reason that I thought I might favour Jesus, Foden or De Bruyne over Salah is because in my head, Brighton are such a fantastic defensive team and Palace aren't the best. But the stats suggest, or at least the ones that I've looked at here, that potentially Palace isn't such an easy fixture and potentially Brighton isn't such a difficult one. I don't normally give categoric, strong opinions in my videos because the concept of my channel is I provide you with the data to make your own decisions. I would strongly recommend you captain Salah this week. Yes, it's possible that Salah blanks. He's not going to score a hat-trick every week. The underlying statistics that we're seeing from him, the underlying statistics we're seeing from Liverpool, and the fact that Brighton's defence isn't as strong as we thought it was, all points to me towards an obvious captaincy in Mohamed Salah. That's just my opinion. Let's take a quick look at the heat maps, as you know I like to do for the top 3 captaincy choices. So guys, as I said, just quickly look at the touch maps, or as I always like to do. You know, as I say, it's a nice combination between eye test and underlying stats. It just allows you to see which position your potential captaincy is getting into. And if they are getting into good positions, I like to use these touch maps as a good reason to captain a player or to bring them in. I've chosen to use De Bruyne here rather than Gabby Jesus. I just think that with Jesus, we don't know for certain that he's ever going to start. We don't know that with De Bruyne, as we saw last week. I would be very shocked if De Bruyne misses 2 Premier League games in a row. I just think it's quite unlikely, considering he's probably their best false nine. He's their best right central midfielder in that number 8 role. And I think Pep loves him, and rightly so. So I don't think I'd be quite confident enough for me that Jesus starts to captain unless we get some early team news. Basically, Mohamed Salah's incredible, but we've known that for a while. If you look at his touch map across the last 3 seasons, it always looks like this. This won't change much across the whole season. It's just very unlikely to. He knows what he's about. He knows the positions he's getting in. He doesn't go on the left. He rarely really goes central. You can see some central touches in the box, but he largely plays wide right. He sticks to the right wing very wide and then cuts in on his left foot when he needs to. He's fantastic. He's everything you're looking for in a captaincy choice. Phil Foden's touch map's actually very, very nice as well. He's playing wide left a lot of the time or in the false 9 position, but there are some touches in the box. He's getting into dangerous positions. It's nothing compared to Mo Salah's, though. Of course, you're not expecting it to be. And De Bruyne's, for me, is quite worrying. Most of his touches are quite deep. The reason for that is he's normally playing in the number 8 position. Even when he plays in the false 9, the whole point of a false 9 is that the supposed striker or the alternative striker drops a little bit deeper. So De Bruyne, similar to how we've seen with Bruno Fernandes in past seasons as well, they'll get a lot of attacking FPL points, but they're not getting into the box a lot. And therefore, for me, I feel less confident, as I said, captaining a player that isn't getting that many touches in the box. I like showing you this just for interest, and I think they're nice to look at, but this again leads to Mohamed Salah. And for me, I'm not going to be captaining anyone other than Mohamed Salah this week. As I said, I'm not going to just permanently captain him no matter what out of fear of a haul. I just think it would be unwise at the moment when he's performing the way he is, scoring a hat-trick against United and getting an assist. If he can do that against United, what can he do against Brighton, who have arguably a worse defence, looking at the underlying data? So for me, I'll be captaining Salah. If you're not captaining him, I don't mind Foden. I don't mind Jesus. I probably wouldn't go for De Bruyne or Mason Mount myself, but they're still really good choices as well. So as I've said in the past, I'd love to answer every single question for you guys in so much detail, but due to the amount of time it takes to make the graphics, I can't do that. And the video would get ridiculously long if I answered every question in detail. So these are some other popular questions. I haven't scripted them. I'm not going to be using stats to answer them. I'm just going to give you my gut feeling, my gut response on them, and hopefully that is still helpful. So the first question is, what to do with Havertz? Do we give him another chance? Yes, in my opinion, you do. You've brought him in for 3 game weeks. I think it would be incredibly harsh of Tuchel to randomly drop him after having a tough game against Norwich. He scored against Southampton in the EFL Cup. I still think that Tuchel, whilst Werner and Lukaku out, will start Havertz in that false 9 position up top as a number 9. I just think that he's got to give him that opportunity. He's been waiting for so long, Havertz, with Lukaku in and Werner. He wants this opportunity to play up top. I think Tuchel will give that to him. And in which case, it seems strange to sell Havertz, even as like a sideways move to like a Foden or a Mount. Even though Foden's underlying stats are so much better than Havertz, I just think it seems strange to sell Havertz before Newcastle and Burnley. So for me, I'm not looking to sell Havertz, and yes, I will be giving him another chance, at least the next 2 games, and then I'll probably sell him probably for Foden in around 2 or 3 game weeks. The second question is, even if Raphinha is fit, at the time of recording this, we don't know about his injury. It looks like, I think Bielsa said that it shouldn't interfere. I think he was pushed and he was asked, do you think Raphinha's injury will prevent him from playing against Norwich this weekend? And I think he just answered with a simple no. So he hasn't confirmed he's fit, but it looks like Raf might be fit. Even if he is fit, should we be worried? Potentially. I said I'm not going to use underlying stats too much, but Raphinha's underlying stats haven't looked fantastic this season. They're comparable to the likes of Saka. They're not elite level by any means, and we've known for a while that a lot of that is made up by expected assists. More so than Raphinha, the worry for me is Leeds. When Bamford's not fit, and it doesn't look like he's going to be fit until sort of like middle of November now, when Bamford's not fit, they just don't look like they click. They've had issues in defence. They are arguably the 3rd worst team in the league this year. They look like they're on... I don't think they will, but they look like they're potentially on course for relegation, which is worrying. And I don't think I necessarily want to spend 6.5 million on a player that is playing for a team that are in relegation form. That being said, I don't necessarily think I would be selling Raptor in a rush to sell him. I definitely wouldn't be bringing him in, even though they've got Norwich this week. And if you have no other transfers to make and you've got a bit of money in the bank, I definitely think Foden is a better pick than Raphinha over the next 5 to 10 game weeks. It's just whether you feel comfortable taking Raphinha out before Norwich. I'd probably wait one more week. So I wouldn't be worried about him, but I'm not particularly excited by him this season so far. Question 3 is, do we keep faith with Armstrong or is it time to sell? In my opinion, it's definitely time to sell. It's just when do you make that sale? Because the thing is, for me, I can put him second bench this week, so I don't need to sell him this week and I can get another week of information. So for me, I'm definitely selling him soon, but I don't need to rush it through this week. If you don't own Ivan Toney, I think that's a very simple move. Just do Armstrong to Toney. Yes, Armstrong could play this week, and if he does, it's a good fixture, but you've constantly got that hanging over you that you might start him, he might come on for a 1-point cameo. Broja clearly appears to be first choice. He might have a minor injury, in which case Armstrong could start. But as I've said in my team selection video, I think both Redmond and Che Adams are both above Armstrong anyway. So you could see Adams and Redmond start, even if Broja is injured. So for me, I just don't see enough. His underlying statistics aren't strong enough to warrant the possibility of a benching. It's not like Hwang or Broja, where if they don't start, it's worth the risk because they're really cheap and their underlying statistics are amazing. His underlying statistics are average at best and the fixtures aren't great long term. So for me, yes, Armstrong is a sell, but it's just up to you when you want to do that. I don't need to rush to do it this week because I've got a strong enough team to put him second bench. Question 4 is the best Raya replacements. Really tough luck for those of you that picked Raya. I'll be honest, I think I made a mistake picking Ramsdale over Raya. I think Raya was the better pick. I don't know if that's hindsight or a bit of outcome bias, but just looking at the way Arsenal have defended recently, doesn't fill me with confidence. And Brentford looked fantastic and so does Raya. So really tough luck there. In my opinion, it's one of two players. I know I just said I feel like I shouldn't have gone for Ramsdale, but I do still think Ramsdale's a great option. I do think that Arsenal will keep clean sheets because their defensive data's okay. It's not great. And Ramsdale makes a lot of saves. So when he does keep clean sheets, you're going to get sort of an 8, 9, 10 pointer potentially, which is great. It's just whether you think Arsenal are potentially going to keep clean sheets over the next 10, 15 game weeks. Remember, you're not going to be wanting to move your keeper on very much. So you want a long-term pick. I'll be honest, I think Sanchez might have been the play on my wildcard, which is annoying to say because I disregarded him due to the lack of saves, but he's keeping a lot of clean sheets. And whilst we said Brighton's stats aren't that good, he still doesn't get challenged too much. Brighton force a lot of sort of outside of the box shots because of their really compact style in defence. So apart from City, who tore them apart, they don't really concede a lot of big chances, Brighton. So I think probably Sanchez if I had to suggest a replacement for Raya. I don't mind Ramsdale. I'm happy keeping Ramsdale, but I think my suggestion would be Sanchez. Question 5 is, do we really need premium strikers at the moment? The answer to that is definitely no. Lukaku's injured. Kane's pretty rubbish. Ronaldo's got some tough fixtures coming up and Manchester United look poor. Vardy might be injured, and anyway, the fixtures aren't great enough for me to say that you have to have him. So potentially you could have no premium strikers or you could just have one of them, but the answer is definitely no, you don't need premium strikers at the moment. As I discussed in the other section earlier on in the video, my issue with selling all of your premium strikers, such as, with the Ronaldo section, the issue with selling all of your premium strikers is that in doing that, you just lack a bit of flexibility in your squad if you want to get back to a premium striker, unless you're replacing them with a premium midfielder. So that is still my opinion on it. I wouldn't sell a premium striker and completely spread the funds around because then you could struggle to get back to a premium striker. But if you're just making a switch from Ronaldo to De Bruyne in midfield, I quite like that because you can easily get back to like a Kane, etc., Lukaku, whoever you want. So no, we don't need them at the moment, but at least have a route back to them if you're going to sell them. And question 6 was, how do we assess Spurs and Kane / Son now? Do we ignore for now? Do we collect more data? I'll be honest, if you don't own Son and Kane now, yes, I would probably wait. I'd hold off for 2 more fixtures and just assess the way it goes. The reason I jumped on then was because of the Lukaku injury. It was Vardy or Kane, and I just decided to save myself a transfer because I thought I was going to want a Spurs player from Game Week 12 anyway, so I just went for Kane. In hindsight, that might not have been the best move because Kane looks like he's completely devoid of energy and interest again. So that is a slight worry. And for me, if I was making the moves again this week, I would potentially hold off on both Spurs assets and just wait a couple more weeks. With respect to how do we assess them, I don't think we need to see great underlying stats from Spurs. I don't think we need to see tons of goals from Son and Kane. What I'd like to see is Spurs just clicking a little bit better, a few better attacking moves put together. I'd like to see Kane press a little bit, track back a little bit more, link up with Son, smile on the pitch. I'd like to see from the eye test perspective, it just looked like it's clicking a little bit more for Spurs. That would be how I'm assessing. I know a lot of analytics guys out there will hate that response. You want to look at the stats, which is fine. But realistically, from game week 12, they've got some easy fixtures, Spurs, the likes of Leeds and Norwich. You don't need their stats to be good for them to perform well in the games against the easy opposition. But what you do need is some kind of enthusiasm and some kind of team spirit from Spurs. So for me, yeah, I'd probably hold off for a couple of weeks now. Probably, unless you've got some free transfers, no other places to make it, and you want to bring them in, that's fine. And I would assess them based on just how do they look? Do they look like they're clicking? Do they look like coming into these nice fixtures like they are going to perform well? Or do you want to use your free transfers elsewhere? Hopefully that's useful answering those 6 questions. Obviously, as always, if you have any questions, post them in the comments. I do my absolute best, as I always do, to reply to every single one of you. And if I don't reply and you see a comment down there, guys, I love the community feel we've got. Please help each other out. As well as me giving my opinion, you can help each other out as well. And that's the best way to do it. We're all FPL managers at the end of the day, just trying to do as well as we can. So help each other out. And yeah, I love the community spirit down there. Finally, guys, just wanted to give my weekly shout out and thanks and show my gratitude to our amazing members. And if you can see a smile on my face, look at how amazing this is. I've had to make another column for the Raptor 1 members. I'm going to have to redesign the graphics soon to make sure that I can fit everyone on the screen. And I want to make sure that I always thank everyone, because the guys that are supporting this channel, you've gone above and beyond what it's free. YouTube is free content. It'll always be free, but you guys have demonstrated that you appreciate the content even more and support me and support the channel and support the amount of time I spend on this. And I'll forever be grateful for that. Even if you cancel after 1 month, I'm still very grateful that you decided to support the channel. For those of you that don't know what this is, you can become a member of some YouTube channels. There's a join button next to the subscribe button, or in the description, there's a link that says, if you want to become a member, click this link here. Essentially, what you're doing is you're supporting the channel for a small fee per month. And as part of that, I'll give you some sort of perks in return, just so that you're getting something in return for the money that you're donating to the channel. As a Rap Tier 2 supporter, you get some custom emojis. You get a badge next to your name. So you'll see some of the guys in the comments in the chat, they have a badge next to their name. If you've been a member for 1 month, you go to green. So you can see the guys with the green badges have been members for at least 1 month. Then to blue, then bronze, then silver, then gold. And the guys that are in Rap Tier 1 get shout outs, members only posts. We have a group chat on Twitter where we can discuss all things FPL. I love this group chat, like genuinely from the bottom of my heart. It's such a cool group chat with such a cool group of guys, and we are just constantly chatting about FPL football and all sorts of stuff, really. And we support each other through the tough times, and we support each other through the good times as well. For example, our man Carl Smith, you can see he's been a member for 1 month. He scored, I think it was 136 points. Let me know if that's wrong, Carl, in the comments if you're watching. But he scored 136 points, I think it was, on his bench boost this week. All congratulating him. It's just a great atmosphere in that chat. And outside of that, if you're a Rap Tier 1 member, you can DM me one-on-one. I'm never claiming to be an elite manager. I don't claim to give perfect advice, but I know you guys like watching the content, so it might be nice to just bounce ideas off of someone when you're having a tough week and you need a bit of help with that key decision for your team. So if you want to support the channel, become a member, do click the link in the description, or just click the join button next to the subscribe button. But I just wanted to thank the guys that have decided to support the channel already. I appreciate you all so much, and I appreciate the amount of support you give to my channel. For those that do not want to become members, the free content will forever remain. I'm not requesting that you donate money towards the channel. If you want to go above and beyond, the option is there for you guys if you want to. So guys, there you have it. That is my Game Week 10 preview, answering as many dilemmas, discussion points, advice that I can for you guys. I love these videos, even more than my team selection video. And the reason is, I love creating content and I love helping you guys. And in these videos, I can help you. And it's not about my team, it's about what the discussion points that you guys have for your team. So if you agree and you really like these Game Week preview videos, let me know down below. Send me some love in the comments, like the video, subscribe to the channel, all of that good stuff. It's all free for you guys, but it helps support the channel so much. And as I said at the start of the video, it's completely free to do so, but it massively supports the channel if you just download OneFootball. It's a free football app. You'll have it on your phone. You can download, you can use notifications, or you can turn them off, whatever you want. But just by downloading that free app, it massively helps support the channel. So do consider doing that. I don't know if I'm going to be live streaming. I would love to live stream, but my internet is playing up massively over the last 3 days. So it'll be a last minute decision on Thursday or Friday. I'm recording this on Wednesday night, obviously. On Thursday or Friday, I'll start running some internet tests. I'll speak to my internet company about trying to sort out what's been going on. If I can get the internet working, then I will 100% live stream. But just follow me on Twitter or turn notifications on for the channel, and I will decide and I'll announce that on the channel and on Twitter. And then you guys can tune in. It will be 6 p.m. British summertime, of course, as always, and hopefully answer some dilemmas for you guys. But it is going to be touch and go as to whether the internet will be ready. Until next time, guys, which will hopefully be the live stream, but if not, ahead of Game Week 11, thank you so very much. Catch you soon. Bye-bye.